Hello chess buddies, welcome to Amateur Chess University. Today we'll be looking at the analysis of the round 7 game between Vidit Gujrathi from India and Jorden Van Foreest from Netherlands in the Tata Steel Masters 2022 event. This game features some interesting moves, so without further ado, let's head straight into the game. Van Foreest here had the white pieces and he begins with d4, going for the queen's pawn opening. Vidit replied with knight to f6, going for the Indian game, c4 by white and e6 by black, the East Indian defense on the board. Here Van Foreest played knight to c3 and Vidit developed his dark square bishop to b4, setting up the Nimzo Indian defense. Here Van Foreest played queen to c2, going for the classical variation of the Nimzo Indian defense, and black castles in this position. Here Van Foreest played his a2 pawn to a3, targeting the dark square bishop, and bishop captured the knight at c3, and queen captured the bishop at c3, and here black pushed his pawn to d5, and white develops the kingside knight to f3. d5 pawn captures a pawn on c4, and queen captures a pawn on c4, and here Vidit played his pawn to b6, preparing to bring his bishop to b7, and Foreest played his dark square bishop to g5, and Vidit brought his light square bishop to b7. Now there are several games in the database where white played rook from a1 to d1 or c1, or pushed the e2 pawn to e3 or g2 pawn to g3. However, Van Foreest here played his knight to e5. It is as of move 10 that we have a completely new game. Here Vidit replied by playing queen to d6. White here pushes the pawn to e3, providing an additional support to the d4 pawn while also opening up this diagonal for the light square bishop. Here black plays c5, trying to break the pawn chain of white's center, and Van Foreest here moved his dark square bishop back to f4 in the same line as the black queen, and Vidit moved his queen back to e7. d4 pawn captures a pawn on c5, and here black played rook to c8, targeting the c5 pawn, and Van Foreest brought his light square bishop to e2, preparing for the castling, and rook captures the pawn on c5, targeting the queen, and white moved the queen to d4, getting the access to the d file. And here Vidit plays knight to d5, blocking that access and targeting the dark square bishop at g4. And Van Foreest moved his bishop back to g3. Here black plays pawn to f6, taking the knight at e5. Better idea for white in this position would have been knight to d3. However, Van Foreest here moved his knight to c4. Better idea for Vidit in this position would have been to play knight from b8 to c6 and target the white queen, forcing it to move away. However, he decided to play bishop to a6, targeting this knight at c4. Here Van Foreest pushed his pawn from b2 to b3, providing an additional support to his knight. And now Vidit played his knight from b8 to c6, targeting the queen at d4, and Van Foreest moved his queen to b2. Now his idea is to play his dark square bishop to g7 next, targeting the queen as a rook. However, Vidit prevents this by playing pawn to e5. Now Foreest moved his rook from a1 to d1, targeting this knight at d5, and Vidit played his knight from c6 to a5, attacking the knight at c4 thrice. Here white finally castles, and knight captures the knight on c4. b3 pawn captures the knight on c4, targeting the knight at d5. Vidit played his knight back to c7. Now the pawn at c4 is attacked by both the bishop as well as the rook. So Foreest here played his queen to b3, protecting this pawn while also aligning the queen in the same diagonal as the black king. And Vidit blocks this diagonal by playing queen to e6, launching a triple attack on the c4 pawn. Here white pushed the pawn at f2 to f4. In this position, if bishop captures a pawn on c4, then bishop captures a bishop on c4, and queen captures a queen on c4, then we will have a queen exchange, and the game situation will be more or less equal, with 2 rooks and a knight versus the 2 rooks and bishop endgame. So after pawn to f4, Vidit didn't capture the pawn at c4 with his bishop. He played e5 pawn captures a pawn on f4, and here rook captured the pawn on f4, providing more support to the c4 pawn. And here black plays rook to e8, attacking this pawn at e3 with both the queen and the rook. So Van Foreest moved his dark square bishop back to f2, and Vidit moved his queen to f7. His idea is to bring the queen to g6, then target the white king along with the help of his light square bishop. The best idea for white in this position would be to play the rook to h4. However, here Van Foreest moved his rook to d4, doubling up on the d file and preparing to bring the rook to d7. Vidit prevents this by playing the light square bishop to c8. Here Forest played his dark square bishop to g3, targeting the knight at c7, and Vidit moved his knight e6, targeting the rook at d4. Forest moved his rook to d5, asking for the rook exchange. Rook captured the rook on d5, pawn captured the rook on d5, targeting the knight, and black moved his knight to c5, attacking the queen. Here Forest moved his queen to c3, and Vidit played knight to e4, targeting the queen as well as the dark square bishop. White played queen to d4. This was move 32, and Vidit had only 11 minutes on the clock, and he took close to 5 minutes to think about this next move. And after 5 minutes, he played bishop to d7. He wanted to prevent the light square bishop of white from coming to b5. However, this move also allowed Van Foreest to keep his dark square bishop. He played dark square bishop to f4, preparing to play d5 next. Vidit wanted to prevent this. He played pawn to g5, taking the dark square bishop, and Forest moved his dark square bishop to c7. The problem for Vidit was his own light square bishop at d7 stood as a barrier between his queen and Van Forest's dark square bishop. While playing f5 next was an option, Vidit however moved his king to g7 and Forest moved his rook to f1, targeting this f file, and Vidit moved his queen to e7 away from the f file, and Van Forest played his light square bishop to h5, targeting the rook at e8. Best idea for black in this position was to play rook to f8. However, with only a minute remaining on the clock, Vidit was feeling the time pressure and he committed a mistake by playing rook to c8. And here, Van Forest played the significant move, pushing his pawn from d5 to d6, protecting the dark square bishop while also targeting the queen at e7. Black queen cannot move to e8, that is controlled by the light square bishop, and if it moves away from the e file, it will end up losing the knight. So here Vidit played his queen to e6, and now Forest played his light square bishop to f3, targeting the knight at e4, and Vidit here had no other option but was forced to move his knight to c3. Forest continued his attack. He played bishop to d5, targeting the queen, and Vidit moved his queen to e5. Now white is on top, and the next move starts a sequence of moves that wins the game for white. So feel free to pause the video and try to figure out the move played by Van Foreest next. If you are able to figure it out, well done. The move played by Van Foreest here was going for the queen exchange, capturing the queen at e5. Now pawn captures the queen at e5, and here white plays rook f7, delivering a check, and black moved the king to g6. Here rook captures the bishop on d7, and knight captures the rook on d7, and white plays bishop to e6. And it was in this position on move 43 that Vidit Gujrathi resigned the game. So let's see why. He cannot move his rook to b8 or d8, and if he tries to play rook to e8, then the light square bishop will capture the knight at d7. And if you look at this position, two bishops in pair along with a pass pawn will be too much to handle even for a rook, and white is completely winning the endgame. So that's the game. Vidit was under tremendous time pressure in the last few moves, and Van Foreest maneuvered both his bishops beautifully to obtain a win. If you have any thoughts on this game, feel free to share. Thank you for watching. Take care. See you.